Hello, everyone, and welcome back to On the Kerbs IndyCar edition. I'm your host, Nate Woods, and I'm joined once again by my co-host, Thiemo Albers-Daly. Thiemo, how are we doing?
Good, thank you, Mr. Woods. How about yourself?
Well, we had a rough weekend here in Indianapolis with the Pacers basketball finals, Game 7 last night. Running a little late, run a little ragged this morning, but we were treated with a great race this
Where the
weekend.
Pacers may let you down, IndyCar does not. So that
That
tells
is
you all you need to
right.
know about which sport you need to be prioritizing.
That's right. Well, I got now we got the Fever basketball season underway. We got that to root for here in Indianapolis. So it's gonna be the WNBA for the next 4 months.
On your head be it. I'm glad I stuck to my motorsport guns and didn't bother getting into any other sport.
Well, this weekend we had the XPEL Grand Prix at Road America, and boy, did it deliver.
Oh, yeah. On the one hand, great race. There's so many things we can talk about and will indeed talk about. On the other hand, how the hell does he keep doing this?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
I'm not even annoyed as such. I'm a little annoyed, but I can't be too annoyed because the way he goes about it, although obviously this is winning it yet again, is in such a different way to how I am used to seeing domination in motorsport.
Yeah.
It's not as if he qualifies first, runs up the road, you never see him, there's never a chance. He's not a perfect driver. He shows this in qualifying. He shows this in
Yeah.
the race. He didn't just overtake everyone at the start and then disappear off in the distance. He didn't do a Max Verstappen Spa 23 and video game his way through the first 10 laps and then disappear in the distance. Impressive as that is, Palou is a different breed, and I can't tell if it's better or worse than that kind, but for me, I prefer it because at least until the end of the race, you're still not 100% sure if he can do it. And then you go, damn, yeah, he could do that, and it was never really in doubt in some ways. But at least there was a little hope for a bit, and I
Yeah.
prefer that to then lie to me a little bit and then take my dreams away rather than just take them away straight away.
So, Road America, I think, is probably one of the fan favorite road courses on the circuit. Uh, and I know you're not brand new to IndyCar, but you've got a few years under your belt now. What is your takeaway of just the track in general? I'm curious.
Yeah, I quite enjoy it. To be honest, it's one of my favorites. I'm still at the point where you can name a few circuits, and I won't immediately have the image in my head of the layout of it. But
Mhm.
as soon as you've showed me, like, oh, it's this one, excellent.
Yeah.
I'm back on board now, and it's got those kind of key characteristics on it that an iconic track does have. I mean, you look at the forget which turn it is, but the long curve round where you're going at about 170 odd miles an hour average round this long corner,
Mhm.
and then obviously you have Canada corner, which you're approaching it at about 180, 190 miles per hour, and then you've got a 4G corner that immediately just is so in just there, and you have no chance to you're glad there's a bit of runoff because if there wasn't, the crashes we would have seen there
Yeah.
this weekend alone would have been tremendous. And it just shows you that, yeah, if, like the commentators were saying, you are a quick driver, you drive quick, you're going to do well. And if you're not, you're not. But you need a bit of skill with it as well, as they showed on those two parts of the track in particular, especially Canada Corner. There were some very interesting moves done
Yes.
throughout the race,
Yeah.
both good and bad. And it's a real racers track, I feel like, and that's
Yeah.
that's what I want. And I think I've said to you before, Laguna Seca is somewhere I'd love to see F1 cars race.
Mhm.
And Road America is the other one immediately off the IndyCar calendar that I'll go, can't have that. May I present?
Here's an alternative. Yeah, this race it had everything and it provided start to finish. I mean, it was captivating every single lap, and definitely
You
one
would
of
have thought that
the.
they hadn't raced in ages the way the drivers were going. So you wouldn't
Oh
think they just
man,
raced last weekend.
yeah. I mean, there were half the drivers in the field. I think were driving with their elbows out, and I mean, just from the first corner. I mean, that was an exciting start to the race, and like it seemed like every other lap you're watching, and you're like, ooh, ooh, making
Oh,
noises at your TV.
exactly what I was doing throughout that. The
Yeah.
commentator at points as well.
Well, you knew you were in for a good race when the front of the field goes three wide into turn one.
Yes, which again, it's such a misleading turn one visually. It feels like because it doesn't look like you can do that first of all. Then when it looks like you can, you realize that there is all that runoff, but you only kind of remember there's the runoff when someone takes it, which someone inevitably does. But it doesn't look like it's there either. It's weird optical illusion for me every time I see it. Every lap, I was doing the same thing. Of, oh, you're not going to make it. You're going to crash. Oh yeah, runoff. But you forget about it immediately afterwards.
Yeah. So Alex Palou, ultimately the winner of the race, but didn't quite have the start of the race that he probably was hoping for. Started
I'll take that
second.
the other way around next time if possible.
He started second outside of the front row, but quickly fell back. I mean, by the time they got through turn one, he was already back to fifth place, maybe.
Fifth, sixth,
And
seventh, yeah, just
yeah,
kind of got swallowed
and
up uncharacteristically, didn't he?
a lot of those front drivers at the start were just just jockeying for position. It was great. We had Louis Foster on the pole, which was
Again, you're not expecting that to transfer so neatly from one
yeah,
category to the next.
yeah. Louis Foster was able to remain in the lead coming out of that first lap, and but you had all these drivers jockeying for position. Kyle Kirkwood, I thought for certain was going to hit the inside wall. I mean, just
Oh, so
was
many
getting
times
pushed
with
out
so
there.
many drivers.
You just kept seeing him like twitch the wheel just ever so slightly to the left, just kind of letting Palou know, hey, I'm here. I'm out of room. I need to come back over. You have to let me have this. So
It finally felt to me with all that jockeying for position and the way that Blue got swallowed up a little bit was that finally they've been listening to us and you actually all have to work together to beat him. Didn't work out this time around, but it felt like this was the start of maybe them trying that out.
yeah, I think part of Palou falling back in that first couple turns led to an incident a little bit back in the pack. David Malukas spin and beach his car in the gravel trap in turn two. And we talked about last week with the length of time it takes for IndyCar to throw a caution flag, and I think the rest of the field was already they were already into turn six, a mile down the track by the time IndyCar got around to throwing the caution flag. But with this course being so long, was it over 4 miles long, 4.1
Yeah.
miles, almost 4.1? The caution flag stints are much shorter than you think they're going to be.
I also
Um,
didn't mind the fact that it was brought out a little later because of the length of the track. You know that you've got a bit more time to assess how
yeah,
serious
that's
the
true.
situation is. Whereas
Yeah,
on an oval,
yeah,
you don't have long.
yeah. Joseph Newgarden knows this well from last week. So, but they were able to pull him out. I was very surprised with the speed that IndyCar safety crews were able to pull cars out of the gravel, not just on this first
I
one,
thought that
but
with Stingray
future
Rob in
ones.
particular, he'd barely just come to a rest in the barriers at that point of the race, and you already saw the car
Yeah,
pulling up next to him and go, oh, yeah, that was
yeah,
quick.
yeah, yeah,
Were you already on
and
track just in case?
yeah, yeah. He coming right out and Stingray. I mean, they were there within 10 seconds.
Seconds. Yeah.
Yeah, and so great to see that the AMR safety crew is on it this year. And yeah, Dave Lucas was able to get pulled out. Had some damage to his front nose cone, but other than that, I think he was none the worse for wear. And we went back to green. Foster ended up giving up the lead to McLaughlin with a great move on the outside,
Which
going
I
into
think we
turn
knew was
one.
always coming, but it's always interesting to see how long these drivers that somehow get into pole position will stay in
Yeah,
first. Because you're not,
yeah,
again, it's like Schwartzman in the Indy
at the
500. You're not
500. Yep.
expecting it to be converted, but you're intrigued to see how long can you pull this out for. And luckily for Foster, a little bit longer than 40 minutes in the
Yeah,
Indy 500.
yeah. We saw a lot of action from the Penske drivers. I feel like they were making the gutsiest moves on track. Will Power on that green flag lap after the first caution, kind of trying to dive bomb Kyle Kirkwood, and both of them getting
Yes.
shoved off, and Palou was able to Pick up a
Oh,
2-for-1 special.
I don't know if you had the same thought when you watched it, but I was seeing it unfold. It reminded me of something I couldn't think for a moment what it was, and then I was like, "Oh, we just had our IndyCar version of this. Excellent!" It was the Lewis Hamilton move in Silverstone back in 2022 on Leclerc and Perez going
Yes.
into that part of the track, and they're too busy dicing each other, and then Hamilton behind just goes, "Well, I'll take both of you then. Thank you very much,
Yep.
and I'll just go
That's
through
right.
here." And Palou did the same thing. I'd be like, "Hey, I've seen this one."
Yeah. Kirkwood was definitely not happy with Will Power.
No, they are not friends at the moment. It doesn't come across as such, does
No,
it?
I think they've had a few run-ins as of late, and not even this one. That I don't even think that was the last one during this race for
No, it
them.
was the other way around later on. And,
Yeah,
Power was on the radio going, "Oh, that must be a penalty, surely." And you kind of had to agree with the commentary at that point, going, "You've both been at each other's throats a lot lately. Let's just call it
yeah,
even and say that
yeah,
this is just hard racing."
yeah. We stacked a lot of cautions in the front end of this race. Robert Schwartzman
Yep.
getting into the tire barriers lap 5, and we started to see some different strategies play out. And a lot of cars dove into the pits on the first caution. We saw even more dive in this time, even though we were only 6 laps into the race, which is a third of but not a little over a third of a fuel stint. And
Hmm.
so it was right from the beginning, you saw drivers trying something different. And
I think the great bit about that was that the podium we got by the end of the race represented all three different strategies at play. And so
exactly,
it
yeah,
was this odd instance of, well, they all worked. And
yeah,
that's great, but also it kind of doesn't make everything zero sum. But it also kind of does a little bit because you go, well, what did we achieve? Exactly the same thing, which is what
yeah,
you wanted. But
yeah.
it confuses you a little bit because you
It,
go, well, I could have just done it one of these two ways. It's been perfectly fine.
it definitely helped hold your attention the entire race for sure, because
Yes,
you
not that
wanted
we
to know
needed it.
which strategy is going to be the one that plays out, right? And it turns out you're correct, all of them were the ones that played out. So as you mentioned earlier, we had a hard hit from Stingray Rob. Um, kind of a
Bizarre incident for me because it
bizarre, yeah,
felt like the only explanation that we got initially was that Armstrong ahead of him must have been kind of boosting it a little bit to save on fuel. But it was just such a massive speed differential that it seemed so sudden. It came across a little bit like he'd been brake tested almost
hmm
because of the amount of severity with which he had to swerve out of the way.
yeah,
And it's just such a shame because I think he was obviously placed kind of relatively in the middle of the track. There was nowhere else for Rob to go.
yeah.
And racing incident on the one hand, but on the other hand, it left a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth on that one because I just thought, well, he's not done nothing wrong there. What's he supposed to do here? And I get that you're kind of fuel save maybe, and that's the strategy, but surely there's a less messy way potentially of going about that, especially on such a high speed portion of the circuit.
Yeah. But like we said, I mean, I was kudos to the workers at the track as well, because I mean, Stingray Rob smoked that tire barrier, and
He
it took
moved it.
them, yeah, he moved it, and it took them little to no time to repair and replace it.
Mhm.
And I think I even heard on the broadcast they replaced the tire barrier. It wasn't just a move them back in place. It was, we're bringing in a whole new section and dropping it in. And I mean, 2-3 minutes where, uh, Detroit, somebody gets in the tire barrier, we're run under caution for 5 laps.
Red flag it.
Yeah, we have to red flag it. Yeah. Scott Dixon was ultimately the leader coming to the green flag,
The
which,
man who broke my heart again this weekend.
you know, uh, not a driver that we necessarily would have had pegged as being the leader at lap 12 after starting 25th.
I'd say the graphics on that were perfect. It just goes up 25 spots in less than 20 laps, and you go,
Yeah,
how the heck did you manage that? Oh, pit stops, pit stops. Okay, cool.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
your usual antics, it's slightly different antics, but
But
Commentator said several times throughout the race, if anyone was going to do that kind of a thing and make it work, it was going to be Scott
it was going
Dixon.
to be
So you're
Scott
not
Dixon
too
for sure.
surprised it's him, but at the same time, you're
Right.
going, how on earth did you get up there?
So we had a good chunk of green flag racing. Scott Dixon and Alexander Rossi, who they had pitted during the first couple cautions. They unfortunately came in and pitted right before a caution flag, and
Great to
usually
know with
that's
hindsight, can't do much about with foresight.
usually that is a real problem in a race. But because you can easily service a car, get it back out, uh, and not lose a lap, and of course this big,
Hmm.
I mean, that obviously helps keep you in the running, even though you're having to make a pit stop right before a caution flag. So, but yeah, that caution on lap 23 for Connor Daly. Uh,
It gave us something
I
new. You didn't have that on
it,
your bingo card for forever. Let's face it,
well,
never know in this season.
this is they kept saying, oh, we come back from commercial break. I don't know what the coverage for
But we saw
Sky
all of
was.
it.
Yeah, we saw it side by side, but it seems like Fox kept going to a commercial at the wrong time,
It did feel
and
that as well
and
from our end. I
so
thought, no, you don't want to go now. There's something about to happen here, and then sure
we
enough,
yeah we were in a commercial break side by side when Connor Daly hits the wall, and then you see him pull the car out and him take off and still have the tow rope attached to the back of the car. The commentators got a kick out of it. But
well,
honestly, that's
again,
not the
it's
first.
not the first time you get to have
It,
an interesting Harry Potter reference in terms of that car's got a tail.
well, it's not the first time I've seen that happen either. The
Oh,
commentators, I know
okay.
some of those guys haven't been around as long, but surely, I mean, Townsend Bell has seen that. I mean, he's been around long enough to where he's seen a driver take off the tow rope attached. But my problem with that incident, and Connor Daly did receive a penalty from IndyCar for this, stop and hold penalty. Uh, my problem with the incident is this is to be expected because of the hybrid. IndyCar gave the drivers the opportunity to be able to restart their cars.
Hmm.
And had that been any other incident, any other year before hybrid, he would have been stuck there until after they'd taken the tow rope off and stuck a starter wrench in the back of the car and got him refired. So this almost has to be expected.
It's a
Is
curious thing to have to expect, but I agree with you, and I see where you're coming from. It's you have to reconsider a lot of things because of that now, and
Mhm.
I think maybe this is as random as it is a wake up call for that because you
Yeah,
go, huh, how did that happen? Oh, right,
yeah,
yes, that
yeah,
wasn't in the risk management section when we
yeah.
were looking at that on the forms.
Now, in all fairness to the IndyCar officials, there was four of them standing there. There were two that were manning around the car. There was one at the rear of the car that had a starter wrench in his hand, and then there was one at the front of the car that had his hand out and
Trying
said,
to,
"Hey,
yeah,
don't go yet, don't go yet," and he went.
and Daly went to me, high five, let's go. I'm up
Yeah,
at
good
it.
job. See you at the finish line. So,
I'll wave at you on the way back with my giant tail flapping off the back of
yeah,
the car.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's one of those things that we're just going to have to expect in
I thought
IndyCar.
that the somewhat ironic's the right word there, but the ironic thing about it as well was that he couldn't even go into the pit straight away because of the fact that the pit lane was closed because of his incident.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
So it's kind of I've got to go for another lap with this flapping about because the rules say I'm not allowed to go in
Yeah,
and get rid of it because otherwise I'll get a penalty for that.
yeah.
So it's
And
kind of damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
Newgarden had a uh, kind of a strange incident. I think he just kind of
It sums up his
looped it
season, that
around.
crash. I
Yeah,
feel like it's just bizarre, and there you go, you're done.
yeah. I mean, coming out of the last turn, and just lost it getting on the accelerator and
I mean, we saw plenty of drivers throughout the race kind of coming through that part of the track very squirrely,
yeah,
and they managed to save it all, but it just wasn't able to. And then it's quite easy to then lose it completely, as he then did. And the wall comes up very quickly to you. You hit that other wrong angle. It'd be interesting to see if he'd hit the front end instead of the rear end, if he'd been able to continue
yeah,
properly. But he didn't, so he didn't.
yeah, yeah. I was surprised he was able to get the car refired and limp it back to pit lane. Obviously, pit lane wasn't very far. You had a couple hundred yards to go, but you had to go uphill to get to
Yes,
your spot. Um, and as soon as he pulled into his pits, his team was there to work on the car. Like they were thinking they were gonna get back out, and
it was all
they
part of
were
the plan, mate.
they were showing the team, pulling parts off the car, and I thought it was kind of comical that they were showing the feed there, and there was one of the crew members was trying to pick tools up off the pit wall with his gloves on, but they were the
Yes.
fire gloves, and he was just sitting there fumbling. He could not. It was trying. I don't even know. It was some sort of
It's
wrench
like trying to play
extension or
Operation
something.
with oven gloves on.
Yeah.
It's not quite going to do the same
He's
thing.
sitting there trying to pick this tool up, and then he's finally like scooting it off the side into the palm of his hand like it's cat food or something. I just got a kick out of it. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I mean a perfect metaphor for Team Penske's season, I suppose.
Man, they mentioned this was Joseph Newgarden's worst start to a season since 2014, and we're here talking like, oh, Will Power's the one that's on the chopping block, and now you have to start thinking,
Well, this is what I've been saying a little bit in the last year. It's like, okay, yeah, Will Power's kind of a bit of a not waters you want to be swimming in, but Joe Newgarden, not exactly. He's probably going, yeah, everyone focus on Will, focus on Will. No one look at me. No one look at this terrible year I'm having.
yeah, I think he still has another year on his contract, luckily for him. So that
Well,
doesn't mean you still
well
can't get shuffled down and you get
I was
replaced with
going to say
Santino
that's.
Ferrucci.
I was going to say, yeah, it's one of those things that hopefully IndyCar contracts for his sake don't become as flexible as F1 contracts do, where, like, oh, you had another year on your contract? Too bad. We're renegotiating.
Yeah. We ended up going green the rest of the race, though. Although we did have a few extra incidents with Will Power spinning off track and continuing on.
We
We
got
had an
away with
incident.
them, though.
They did. They really did. And I guess that's a positive for the hybrid system. Is that okay? It's not okay that the drivers have the ability to restart their cars when there's still stuff attached to them, but it's nice that they're able to restart their cars when there's not a tow strap attached to them. So,
Which is not
uh,
always going to be the case, so it's
yeah,
all good.
yeah, that's true. Better than the alternative and
Mm.
landing in a tire barrier. So,
And taking that
uh,
with you, kind of hooking that up to the back of your car and dragging that
that's
around
right.
with you instead.
But there was a lot of uncertainty there towards the end of the race with who had fuel to get to the end. Um, it was speculated that Dixon, Palou, and Rossi were the three drivers that were up front, were not going to be able to make it to the end. And ultimately, we saw Rossi come in from third place for a splash and go with 4 laps to go.
My
Dixon came
willing
in.
them to get to the end was
Yeah,
not quite enough,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Dixon, who usually is really good at saving this fuel, just couldn't pull it off. The track is just too big. He came with 2 laps to go. That turned the lead over to Palou, who we still weren't necessarily sure was going to have enough fuel. He ultimately did, and was able to cross the finish line first.
Which we don't say very often this year, so it was nice to have a bit of variety.
Yeah. This, of course, is Palou's sixth win on the season, 17th career win. They mentioned that this is the first time since 1975 that
Hmm.
a driver has won 6 out of the first 9 races. A.J. Foyt being the driver that did that 50 years ago. So.
Hopefully bodes well for when we see this next.
Yeah. Rosenquist was second place. He was coming up pretty fast there at the end. He was gaining
he It
half a
was and it
second left.
wasn't. It was kind of he got to the 4 5 second mark, and then it started getting tricky for him to actually make
Yeah.
any dents in inroads, and I thought it was such a shame. Um, so it was like again trying to will him on, and like this, none of this is working.
Yeah.
Why is none of this working?
Yeah. And Santino Ferrucci, A.J Foyt Motorsports, coming across in third. This is going to become a habit for him, I think.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that as well. It was again another one of these like Rasmussen last weekend. It was
Yeah.
just oh sweet, we got someone not new, but it's kind of you've been around for a little bit now. It's nice to see that progress forwards.
I was really happy to see Ferrucci finish third, not just because he's a fan favorite, but because we knew the celebration was going to be a lot of fun. And he ran
And
out
it
of
was
gas.
before he even got to
Yeah, he
victory
ran
lane.
out of
So
gas going in, just crossing the finish line. He ran out of gas, still finished third. Parked the car in turn one, and had somebody in the stand in the viewing mound there throw him a beer. And
it was a bottle of water initially, had a bit of that,
yeah,
not
bit
quite
of
right, and
that.
then a beer
Yeah,
came. And,
yeah, and
that's
beer
what I
cans.
like.
Yeah, and if he's not receiving a call from Miller Lite this
Mm-hmm.
morning for a sponsorship deal or a decal, then
And the commentators are saying as well, like, oh, I bet that tastes so good right now. I'm like, yeah,
yeah,
it
yeah,
probably does.
yes, it does. So team analysis. We'll start off with uh, the
Team
ugly, I
Penske.
guess. Yeah, Team Penske. I mean, another tough weekend for them, for all three drivers. When all three of your drivers qualify in the top 10 and then they all fail to finish in the top 10, that's tough.
Last week to me, at least felt like it was just bad luck. I mean, we gave them collectively between us, I think, the hard luck award because
Yeah,
what could you do against most of what happened to
yeah,
them? And so while they'd qualified well, racing happens. This time out, less so, it felt like. I mean, New Garden, like I say, it was something that a lot of people nearly did, but only
mhm,
he actually did. And it
yeah,
felt a bit of a rookie mistake there. And it was so late in the race as well. It wasn't early doors, it wasn't anything like that. And you go, well, you know, at this point, that part of the track is going to try and catch you out and throw you around a bit, and you let it.
yeah,
And I know we said earlier about there's all this focus on power at the moment and what's going to happen with the CC for next year, but people need to be looking at New Gun a bit more because it's not as bad as Marcus Ericsson for me in terms
yeah,
of look at what this driver's capable of and look at what he's doing,
yeah.
but he's heading in the right direction if he wants to be compared to him,
Mhm.
and that's not something I can imagine he wants. And Scotty Mack, it just didn't come together again. I think a little bit like how he had the least dramatic exit from the race last week. He had the least dramatic result of the three of
Yeah,
them. And okay, yes, didn't finish outside the top 10, but P12 for Team Penske at the moment, the weirdest that is to say, it's not bad. It's something at least, and I guess we
I,
just gotta take that.
yeah. I was very unimpressed with Will Power's racecraft this weekend. I mean,
I loved it.
it was just borderline dangerous on a few circumstances for me.
Hard
And
racing, hard racing. No,
well,
I'm kind of with you.
yeah, not the kind of racecraft you want to put on tape for your sizzle reel when it comes time to negotiate a contract. So, probably even though he finished 14th, I think it was maybe a weekend that he would want to forget. But
And a venue, bear in mind, historically, the team and these drivers do very well at. So
yeah,
even more of a kick
yeah,
in the teeth for them, really.
yeah, yeah. Arrow McLaren, another team that probably had a weekend that they would want to forget. Nolan Siegel is kind of the shining beacon for the team, which when Nolan is your top driver, that's you know that your other drivers have had a rough weekend. Christian
It,
Lundgaard, late, mid race penalty for avoidable contact, which was pretty minimal, one position penalty, but through pit strategy, he found himself the last car on the lead lap. And so,
Yeah, that was an example of the strategy definitely not working
not
out for
working.
someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't get my wish either, mate, of Lundgaard smiling this weekend. So we're
No.
gonna have to tie that
Yeah.
over to Mid Ohio. Your
Uh,
your comment about Siegel though, it reminds me, and I think it's always going to remind me of the Long Beach Grand Prix from I think was it last year or the year before, where Pourchaire was somehow the highest placed Arrow McLaren driver,
yes.
and he
Yep.
just popped in for that weekend, and you go, nothing against the kid here, but he shouldn't be the highest one up of three.
Right. Yeah. 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 Just kind of a rough day all around. Pato Award starting 11th, finishing 17th, and he was a driver that ran towards the front, in portions of the race. Andretti Global. This was just kind of an even keel weekend as possible for this team, I feel like.
It feels a bit like a new normal, doesn't it? And that's
Yeah,
again not a good thing.
not when you have a driver that's trying to win a championship, or at least trying
Well,
to
luckily
catch
that,
the
that
leader.
that driver is at least the one that's performing. It's
Yeah,
it's just the same about the other two.
yeah. Colton Herta, started 16th, finished 16th. Definitely had a few on track incidences as well. I think had a weekend very similar to Will Power, I would say.
Yeah, but I feel like unfortunately for him, he's more used to it at the moment
Yeah,
than
yeah,
Power might be, and
yeah.
he's again. I think I said this after maybe even after last weekend. It's kind of I forget which drivers it was then, but just kind of or heard us sitting in a bar just nursing his wounds, and Will Power walks in and he just looks at me, nah. I've been waiting for you to turn up, buddy.
Yeah, yeah. Kirkwood, again, kind of the shining beacon for this team, I would say. He's the one that's in the catbird seat chasing Alex Palou. Started third, finished fourth. I think salvaged a weekend for sure. And
Especially with the amount of chaos that we saw
yeah,
throughout this race, for him
yeah,
to still make it in the same way that Palou made it through everything, and there were some dicey moments for him.
mm,
You go, well, this could easily turn everything on its head again and give Palou that immediate advantage. The fact that
yeah,
it didn't as much as it could have been in the circumstances is great for Kirkwood and shows that he's not just a driver looking into this. He is driving forward to try and do everything he can against quite a powerful force in below.
yeah, yeah. And of course, Ericsson qualified 14th,
Featured.
finished 21st. Just kind of what we expect for Marcus Ericsson, I feel like at this point.
Maybe I have to take responsibility for this. As soon as I started watching IndyCar, he's slowly but surely reverted back to the Marcus Ericsson that I know.
That yeah. The F1 Marcus. Chip Ganassi, I think it's safe to say had the best weekend.
They did, but we were this close, Nate. Scott Dixon winning, this close to
Yes.
me being happy.
Hey, we were
Why did
this
it get
close
taken
to a
away
Kiffin
from me?
Simpson top five.
I don't know if that would have been enough to salvage it for me. I would have been very happy for him, but it was just we got that close with Dixon towards the end. I thought, son of a gun, he's gonna manage it. He's gonna manage it, and he didn't manage it. Like, he
Yeah.
didn't manage it.
After qualifying, we thought, okay, you got Alex Palou, series leader, qualified second, outside the front row. But then you have Kiffin Simpson qualifying 23rd and Scott Dixon just laying an egg in qualifying 25th.
Yeah,
And
to be fair,
so you
he was
think,
doing right. He just got shuffled back
yeah.
with a little bit, but
And it just
yeah,
you
not what
think,
we need.
yeah, it's like the optics of that made it look like, oh, this is not going to be their weekend. And they played strategy perfectly for that team, for all three drivers.
I think
And
that's the advantage when you've got those two drivers way down the order, though. What have you got to lose? You're
yeah,
already at the back.
that's true. Yeah. Unfortunately, there's not more teams that have adopted that idea. I think we have a lot of
Well,
these lower tier teams that are just like, all right, we're going to do whatever Penske does, or we're going to do whatever Andretti does. And just we got this game plan. We're going to stick to it. If it works, great. If not, then it doesn't work, and it never works. So,
say this in
but
F1 so much of the time. Let's try something different. What is the worst that's going to happen here? You're going to be
yeah,
exactly where you started. At least you'd have tried something.
that's right. Haas needs to get on board, man.
Oh, I say about them so much the time.
But yeah, like I said, a great weekend all around. Kiffin Simpson finishing sixth and Scott Dixon finishing eighth. I mean, uh, that
Don't talk to me about it, Nate. Don't talk to me about it.
it was exciting for me. A.J Foyt Racing, another team that I think really put it together.
They did a great job.
Santino Ferrucci, we mentioned, finished on the podium in third after starting 18th. And, Dave Malukas, after basically starting from the rear of the field after the first
Yeah.
caution flag, he started seventh and ended up finishing seventh. And on top of that, led laps in the race. So,
Yes, it's really nice to see that kind of consistent trend for the team as well.
yeah,
And it was on a weekend as well where I believe they said in commentary that main sponsor for Ferrucci had passed away, and
right.
hence the darker shade of livery. So not a
Mhm.
bad way to kind of doff the cap to the person and the outfit that's been able to help you for so long, because it's been such a long partnership between the pair.
Yeah,
And goes and rewards it with a podium and then a nice post race beer with the fans to make them all happy. I mean,
that's
you
right.
can't ask so much more, can you? Really?
Well, and you think this is the team that has the technical alliance with Team Penske. And you look at the contrast
How are they
between these
making
two
that
teams.
work?
Yes, it's like Santino Ferrucci with the podium moves up to ninth place in the point standings. He is 13 points behind Will Power in seventh place in the points, and is only 6 points behind Scott McLaughlin in eighth place.
It
Yep.
reminds me so much of the Racing Bulls Red Bull situation of, oh, we'd like to put you in Red Bull for next year, and go, I'm not sure if I want to do that. I'm quite
Yeah,
happy where I am.
that's right.
I'm doing pretty nicely here. I might just stay. Is that all right?
Yeah, it just for your feeder team and the technical alliance to be doing as
So
well in
much
the
better.
points at this point in the season. I mean, we're past the halfway point in the season now. And to have your technical alliance feeder team being that close to your team, especially being Penske,
Hmm.
should certainly throw up some red flags.
Oh, most definitely. And
Yeah.
yeah, we could do a whole other podcast just on that. And considering where that looks like it's going by the end of the season, if we need some off-season content made, I think we could easily get a four-part docu-series out
Yeah,
of Team
I
Penske's
think we
woes for
could.
this year.
Yeah, I think we really could. Juncos Hollinger Racing, really not a whole lot to mention there. We've talked about Stingray Rob's incident and the fact that yeah, he's okay. Connor Daly, qualifying 21st, finishing 22nd. Stingray Rob, qualifying 26th, finishing 26th. Uh,
We've got a double header with ovals next time out. They'll be
yeah,
fine then. It's
yeah,
much
yeah,
more to their cup of tea.
yeah, yeah. Meyer Shank Racing. I think
Another
this is
really
another team
strong
that,
outfit.
yeah, this is a really strong outing for them. Felix Rosenquist, just kind of in the background, it feels like. We're talking about, we got Marcus, or we got Pato Award and Kyle Kirkwood that are trying to chase down Alex Palou for the championship. But then you forget, Felix Rosenquist is in fourth in the points right now.
And remind me, he drove for Aaron McLaren before, right? At
Yes,
some point.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it must have been when I first came into this, because when he left the team, obviously, it was one of these drivers where you must have seen him somewhere else. I don't know where, but I always kind of have this notion attached to him that he is good.
mhm,
And whenever he doesn't have a great performance, it feels a little bit like Alexander Rossi or Rinus VK in terms
mhm,
of it must be the machinery, because I know what the driver can do. It's
yeah,
just he's not able to show it as much. And so what I was so disappointed that it was only second in the end, maybe because it was Palou out in front instead of if it was someone else, and I'm like, that's not too bad.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but again, it's not too surprising, but it is a little surprising because we're not used to seeing it as much at the moment. But at the same time, as you say, he's just somehow fourth in the standings on points, and you go, I don't think he's going to do it, but it's interesting that he's there of all the
yeah,
people.
yeah. And Marcus Armstrong. great weekend for him as well. I mean, he qualified 15th and finished top five in fifth place.
I'm
Um,
still a bit annoyed with him about the Stingray Rob thing, so I'm not sure what happened there. But overall, it was a good weekend for him.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's we, a weekend that this team can walk away from and have a positive result. I mean, Marcus Ericsson's 11th in the points. He's only 1 point behind both Santino Ferrucci and Colton Herta. So I mean,
And it's the
it's
second
not.
weekend in a row that they had that kind of a weekend that they can walk
Yeah,
away from on two
yeah,
very different circuits, mind you, as well.
right. Yeah, and I mean, it's not out of the realm to think, one more good finish for Marcus Armstrong. The point standings from seventh back to 11th are very, very close. And we're talking, 14 points
Hmm.
between five drivers. So I'm not saying that I'm resolved in trying to hype up the mid pack races in the points at this point in the
I think it's
season,
just because
but
of who is in that mid pack, though. It's a bunch of unexpected drivers that
yes,
you're
yeah,
intrigued to see who's going to end up as the best of the rest from them
yeah,
because it's such a topsy-turvy hire that you weren't
yeah,
necessarily thinking of at the first part of the season when things kicked off.
yeah. Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing.
I've got a quiz for you here, Nate.
I
I
think
know the
this is
answer, so don't worry.
okay.
Um, Obviously, Louis Foster, pole position. When
Mhm.
was the last time a British driver got pole position in IndyCar?
You'll have to give it to me. I don't have it.
It was Dario Franchitti, Sonoma, 2013.
Uh, yeah,
One
well,
of one of the bigger British names.
uh, he is one of my least favorite IndyCar drivers of all time. I'm just going to put that out
What's he
there.
done to you?
Oh,
Or is this a separate podcast?
I just in general, I didn't like him. And two of his three Indy 500 victories were kind of clouded and uh, you know, non full length races ending under caution.
How's that his
You got
fault?
you got his ex-wife Ashley Judd jumping around in the pits thinking that she won the Indy 500. The whole
So it's more
package.
stuff surrounding him than the man himself, is what it
No,
sounds
I
like.
just didn't like him either. Yeah, yeah, I just didn't care for him as a driver. So, but kudos to Louis Foster for um, taking the pole. I do think
Yep.
he needs to grow the mustache back though.
Yeah, I
He
think. I mean, it didn't do him any good in the race, did it? It
no,
helped him just in qualifying. So I think, yeah, it's he needs to do what Lundgaard did and shave it when he's won
when he
instead of once
wins,
he's got the
yeah,
pole position.
yeah,
That's where it's
yeah,
gone wrong there.
yeah. He definitely is a funny looking guy without that mustache. I think he needs to grow it back.
Now he is, yeah. I feel like I got used to it in a very short
Yeah,
amount of time. So
yeah. Foster on the pole. Actually, he led the first four laps, although albeit under caution. But he was able to hold off Scott McLaughlin for those first
pretty
six
convincing, but
before
yeah.
and ended up finishing just outside the top 10 in P11. Graham Rahal also had a great start to the race, but I think after he made the fast six in qualifying, I think that was the last time they mentioned him in the
They,
entire
they mentioned a
broadcast.
bit in the racing, but it was more him. He got his elbows out of quite a bit, but I think like a couple of the drivers, the sheer amount of cautions just ended up a little bit like Lundgaard, just not working for him. He just
Mm.
got shuffled back, and they kind of somewhat expecting that something else was going to happen, and they could take advantage of it, and then it just never transpired. So weirdly, one of his stronger races, it's just the result doesn't
Doesn't
show that,
reflect
which
it.
is such
Yeah.
typical
Yeah.
Graham Rahal. I feel
Yeah.
like at this point.
Yeah. And of course, Di Francesco finishing where he started in 19th. I think that was pretty much par for the course for him.
Yep.
Yeah, Ed Carpenter Racing. I think the finishing positions of their two drivers don't accurately um, reflect the days that they had. You have Alexander Rossi, who started 24th and finished 13th, which on paper doesn't feel
We saw a
great.
lot of them on the broadcast. It felt it
Yeah,
just. I never knew
yeah,
where they were. I could
yeah,
just see them in the pack. They were fighting. They were doing stuff, and then I'm like, I've no idea where you actually are in the grand scheme of things.
yeah. I mean, Rossi ran in the top five for a good chunk of the race. He was on the same strategy as Scott Dixon, and so whenever Scott Dixon's out in the lead, you know, Alexander Rossi was not far behind, and so he got a lot of airtime. Great for the
Hmm.
sponsors, great for the team, but
I do like the
unfortunately,
livery on his car as well. It's a
yeah,
really nice blend of colours there with the
yeah.
blue and yellow.
But running the same strategy as Scott Dixon didn't necessarily work out for him. Finishes 13th, and then Christian Rasmussen qualified 20th, finishes 18th. I don't think that accurately reflects the day that he had either. But
No,
yeah, not much else to really say for the team other than fuel strategy. Was kind of the deciding factor for him. So Dale Coyne Racing, Jacob Abel, I think Jacob had a decent day. I mean, we saw him on a different fuel strategy as well. I don't think he was quite on the same strategy as Dixon, which was I think was
Hmm.
the proper strategy at the end of the race was the Dixon strategy, but he was kind of on that third strategy that nobody else was on. Qualified at the rear of the field, finished 23rd, but he had big chunks of the race where he was running either just inside the top 10 or just outside of it. And
there's a lot of teams and drivers at this point in the season that we're seeing patterns and we're saying a lot of the same things about. And it's nice with Abel that it's positives. It's not massive positives, but it's
yeah,
small ones moving in the right direction, which is what we keep saying we want from these drivers. So
right.
it's nice that it's another race and we can just go, what I said last time, it still applies.
Yeah.
And it's nice.
Yeah. Rinus VK, also not the best qualifying effort, finishes qualified 22nd and finishes in top 10, in 10th place. So,
Again, kind of what we come to expect from him in a lot of ways too is kind of, okay, the machinery might not always be there, but you can make the best of it.
but this was our ninth race of the season, and this was his fifth top five, so, or fifth top 10. I'm sorry. And so you're kind of like, he's finishing well in the races that he is. And then obviously there's races. There's been four races that he has failed to finish, I believe. So,
But
um,
again, you're thinking with the car and the team and everything, that's to be expected in some ways. If
yeah,
that was any other driver, you'd be mightily impressed with that kind of performance. So you're not surprised when, or you kind of, yeah, you'd be mightily impressed. But when it's someone like VK, you're going, yeah, that's
yeah,
kind of what I'd expect him to be able to do. It's not always going to go his way, but
yeah,
that's just part of the course, unfortunately.
yeah. And we'll wrap up with PREMA. And this was kind of
At
to be expected, I think, for the team.
least I like
But
qualified well.
both Schwartzman qualified decent as well. I mean, Schwartzman
I did
qualified
show him up a
17th.
bit though, unfortunately,
Yeah,
so it makes it look a lot
yeah,
worse.
yeah. And then finished, finishing last in the field, 27th with that tire barrier incident. Callum Eilert qualified ninth. So great qualifying effort for him. Finishes 15th. I think he was just a driver that we never really saw running much in the top 10. I think I do remember one time mid race seeing his name flash in the top 10 briefly, but
One more time than
uh,
I remember it.
yeah. um, but yeah, it was just this team, they're still new. We have to remember they're new to IndyCar. And unfortunately, I think when we heard that Prema was coming to IndyCar, what, 2 years ago now, we're like, okay, we've got big money, big team from overseas coming here to America to get into our open wheel racing. This is going to be a net positive for our sport. I know there were some purists that were like, oh, we don't need a European open wheel team coming over here and showing us how it's done here in America.
Good
Uh,
news.
good news. I think they're showing these teams in America how not to do it. But
The
this
Francesco
is
approach.
this is a team that has enough money backing it that they will figure it out eventually, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I
I
think
don't think
so.
it's going to be with these two drivers, but get a couple seasons under your belt, and then you can start attracting some talent that isn't ending up at another mid-tier team. So drivers like Alexander Rossi at ECR,
Marcus Ericsson, if he
Marcus Ericsson, yeah,
looks in a bit of trouble.
yeah. Well, and, drivers that would be strong fits for a team like this would be someone like Will Power. You
Hmm.
know,
I'd
you
say the amount
know
of knowledge and experience you've got as someone being a driver
exactly.
like him is going to do you a lot of favors.
And I mean, PREMA is definitely a team that has the financial backing that they can land an expensive driver like Will Power, I think.
Very much
So,
so.
so points wise, I wrote them down the notes, but then I remembered I wrote these notes immediately after the race. So the notes that I have are the wrong points. So we'll go off the screen here. Alex Palou, of course, still our points leader. Kyle Kirkwood with top five finish uh, ends up he's 93 points back at this point. So not quite two full races, but we're getting into the point of the season where we have to start saying, oh, okay, the only way we can see it happening now is if Alex Palou goes back to his old ways and can't win on an oval.
So next time out is potentially game changing in a lot of ways there because you've got two ovals on the same two oval races, the same oval, same weekend,
Yeah,
lots of points to play with. Hard to turn around momentum if
yeah,
you have some bad momentum, that is. And it could be exactly what someone like Kirkwood needs. He did well last time at the last oval we went to. Palou, he was doing fine, but nowhere near his usual thing. So even if Palou still manages to get some points on the board, Kirkwood could really close that gap up. But I
yeah.
don't know if I'm being too naive.
Pato Award definitely lost some ground this weekend after he finished 17th. He's 111 points back. Um, he is almost 20, was 18 points behind Kyle Kirkwood at this point. So, and then we mentioned Felix Rosenquist. He's in a tie for fourth with Scott Dixon. They're both 155 points back. So I feel like, I feel like that they're not mathematically out of the championship yet, but certainly are going to be close. Uh, I think that's where the battle for the best of the rest begins. So,
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what they're just going to have to condemn themselves with at this point and go,
yeah.
well, you've only got yourselves to blame, guys.
Who is your hot driver or team this weekend?
Well, you nicked all of the good options, so I'm stealing two of them from you and leaving you with the main one. So I'm taking A.J Foyt and Meyer Shank, to be honest. I mean, we've been over why they had such great weekends already. I think Meyer Shank
Yeah.
is the team of the two that is perhaps least expected,
Mhm.
just because they've been definition of mid pack for the majority of the year, and yet somehow, when you look at the points, are much higher than you would somehow tend to believe, even though you've watched everything unfolding. And
Mhm.
A.J Foyt, just as I said, really nice to see two drivers there really coming into their own. And everyone was worried about Will Power, maybe rightly so, but maybe if you're Scotty Mack and you're Tris Newgarden, you're looking over your shoulder a bit more now because there's another driver of that team going.
Yep.
So, is
I'm
that
ready.
seat also available?
Put me in
Put
the
me in,
game,
coach.
coach. Yeah. Yeah. So as you mentioned, I wrote AJ Foyt and Meyer Shank in for my honorable mentions, but for me it was Chip Ganassi. I mean, just absolutely dominating. I think with having two or three drivers start from near the tail of the field to finishing in the top 10, uh,
It's
even
not
when
bad
your pit
going.
strategy doesn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
And still managing to bring together top tens. So yeah, Chip Ganassi was definitely who I'm going with for my hot. For not hot, I'm going with Prema. I just
Understandable.
I I where every team felt like every team, with the exception of Prema, had at least a driver who had a moment where you're like, oh, that good for them. Even
Versus
with
Premier, just went,
Rahal, Letterman,
oh,
Lanigan, it's like oh, Louis Foster took the pole. That's awesome, great for him. Um, but this is a team that there was nothing that came from the weekend that impressed me for either driver. How about for you? Who's not hot for you?
whilst the two teams that I've chosen did fit into your category there of at least they had one driver going for them, it's not really good enough because your Andretti Global and your Arrow McLaren. What on earth are you
Yes.
playing at? Do better. And uncharacteristically bad weekends for O'Ward and for Lundgaard. Ericsson. like I say, he's just reverting back to what I know from him. And but maybe he needs to find wherever the voodoo capital of the world is and sort himself out there, or he needs to do something out of a bit of left field to help him out there because whatever he's doing at the moment is not working for him. But for two itemless teams as them, not good enough.
So hard luck. Yeah, I'm going to have to ask you to explain your show notes here.
It's related to yours. I got too invested in Scott Dixon, so it didn't happen. So I feel like I got hard luck done by.
Yeah, yeah. I just Scott Dixon for me as well. I just uh, a driver that we just kind of come to expect to be able to manage fuel, and the track is just we talked about earlier, just too big, and he's unable to
We got this close, Nate.
we
We
got
got this
close.
close.
Like I said, he still managed top 10.
I
And
know.
it's hard to give a hard luck award to somebody that finishes eighth, but or ninth
That's the
place.
definition
Yeah.
of hard luck, I think, if you are finishing in the top 10. It's kind of
Yeah, yeah,
2 laps away
yeah,
from winning this damn thing.
yeah, yeah. So we do have a bit of news in IndyCar to discuss before we wrap up. This past weekend, they introduced the new specs for the 2028 IndyCar program. So we're getting a new car, as we mentioned. The DW12 has kind of worked for us for the better part of a decade and a half at this point, and even with the upgrades, the aero screen upgrades to with the hybrid, it has managed to work well for a long time. But we are getting brand new car, brand new engine package for 2028. Dallara is still going to be the chassis manufacturer. And they're saying that the new cars are going to be 80 to 100 pounds lighter.
Which is quite significant, I think.
It really is. I mean, IndyCars are already pretty light.
Not F1 2026. We're going to be 10 centimeters shorter on the sides and go,
yeah.
oh, right. So when you said dramatic changes.
Yeah. There's a new engine package coming out as well for the teams. We're jumping up to a 2.4 liter from the 2.2 that we've been running. It's a twin turbo V6 engine. So it'll probably sound a little bit different, but I don't think it's going to be a massive change on that front. But yeah, I mean, no word on what the cars are actually going to look like quite yet.
I was in a press conference prior to the weekend with Alex Palou, and they were asking him about this. And do you have any kind of preference for anything? You go, not really. As long as it goes quick and we've all got the same machinery, I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, you look at an IndyCar. If you go back through and you start looking at like IndyCars from different generations, we're not seeing huge changes.
It feels like a natural evolution.
Yeah, it's a very natural evolution. So it'll be fun to see what they come out with 2028. Maybe we will end up getting a Delta Wing after all.
So there's something to think about between now and mid-Ohio.
So I think that wraps it up. We are going to be back in a few weeks. As you mentioned, July 6th, we have our race at Mid-Ohio, which is always another fan favorite, I feel like, on the schedule. And then we've got double headers. I mean, we're going into a stretch in July where we've got back-to-back races. So we're going to be busy.
Get hectic.
Yeah.
Yep.
For three of these races, I'm going to be on vacation for it, but we're still going to get the content out for you. So always
the dedication we have here on the Kerbs
IndyCar. That's right. I want to thank everybody for tuning into On the Kerbs IndyCar, and we will see you guys after our next race.